Hello and welcome to my Dinomorphia deck profile. I played this list at the Mainthal Regional last Saturday and I barely missed out on a top. I got 67th place where top 64 got an invite. So this deck might very well be able to give you an invite. Let's jump right into the deck list and afterwards I'm gonna give you my siding patterns that I used in that tournament. In the main deck I'm playing 3 Theresia, 2 Diplos, this is super standard. Theresia can set you any Dinomorphia trap when she's summoned, and Diplos can send you any Dinomorphia card when he's summoned. Then this might not be standard. I'm playing a D-Shifter in the main, and I barely ever side him out, if I even side him out. Because Shifter is just so great this format. I decided to main deck the Shifter, even though it conflicts with some cards in the deck. But it's still a crazy card. If you opened it, it's really nuts. The only downside is if you draw this with Card of Demise. For the spells, I'm playing 1 Prosperity, 1 Card of Demise, and 3 Duality. Oftentimes you will see yourself holding the Card of Demise just because there's not much value if you draw 3, but you gotta discard 2 in the end phase anyway, because you don't have 7 zones to set spells and traps in. But Card of Demise still is a really cracked card, and it's insane that this card is still at 1, because not many decks can play it. Hopefully this gets unlimited in the next ban list. Then for the traps, I'm playing 3 Frenzy. Frenzy is really insane. It's a better branded fusion. It allows you to get a Rex term on summon 1. 3 Domain. Domain allows you to go into Kentrigena, and then Kentrigena can copy the domain to get you a Rex term. This means that if you only open this, you play into Talon's Take, which is very bad because Talon's Take on Rex term is a crazy out for the Rex term. Both of these can also dodge effect damage. Alert can too. All of the normal Dinomorphia traps can dodge effect damage, and all of the Dinomorphia counter traps can dodge battle damage. This comes up if you play against Vanquish Soul, because their normal trap says that it's a then effect. So you inflict like 400 damage to your opponent, then you can special summon a Vanquish Soul monster from your hand, and then something else happens. So if you use this in response to a Vanquish Soul normal trap, they won't get anything. They don't get a board wipe, they don't get a special summon, and you don't take any effect damage. So keep in mind that you can chain these to burn effects that your opponent has if you got these in the graveyard. Then to Alert. Alert is really great because you can summon up to 2 level 4, up to 2 Dinomorphia monsters from your graveyard whose combined level is 8 or less. So this doesn't target for the Reborn. And you can summon a Theresia, a Diplos, a Kentrigena, and then just copy this with the Kentrigena again. Or you can get a Rex term from the graveyard with this. It's really great, but sometimes we side this out because it doesn't do anything without setup. For the counter traps, we are playing 2 Intact. Intact is a monster negate and destroy. And if we activated this, we cannot die by a battle damage. It's kind of hard to explain the effect, but you never die by a battle damage if you activated this. Also, you can bench this from the graveyard in the damage step when you would take battle damage, in the damage calculation even, so that you don't take battle damage. This means that you can use Diplos to send this from the deck to the graveyard if you are scared of your opponent crashing into you. I lost 2 games because I got dropleted in the damage step and they sent a trap, so I couldn't even judgment the droplet. Keep this in mind, so you always want to have an Intact in the graveyard if your opponent might be on droplet. Yeah, I got a 6-3 by the way at the regional, and as I said, 2 of my losses were because of droplets in the damage step. Then the other counter traps, we are playing 3 Iron Thunder. This is pretty much Solemn Judgment, but a bit better. This cannot negate summons, but it negates everything on the field. So this is great even going second. Then 3 Judgment. There are some matchups where we side this out as well, because once your opponent already has an established board, Judgment doesn't do much. Like, it sometimes stops a player from overcommitting, but it doesn't really punish as much as the other counter traps. So Judgment is on the list of cards that we want to side out if we go second against a few matchups. 3 Strike. Strike is great, but it's a bit sad if you top deck this late that you cannot activate it because it has a fixed life point cost. 3 sort of the Supreme King. This is great because it summons a Zark from our Extradeck and permanently negates its effects, but we can play around that by booking our own Zark with the Daruma Karma Cannon. We can also negate the Zark and destroy it to get it in the scale, to have its scale effect. It's really cool what this can do. And if our opponent activates a spell card or spell effect, we can banish this from the graveyard and a Zark from our monster zone to special summon up to one each of a Pendulum Dragon, Synchro Dragon, Xyz Dragon, or Fusion Dragon. It doesn't matter much because we are not playing one of each target, but the targets that we are playing are quite spicy. You might know some of them already if you are a Dinomorphia player, but if you are new to the deck, then you will be surprised how good the targets for this card are. For the other normal traps, we are playing a 2-trap trick for more consistency. You could play Trapaholic, but I just like Trap Trick. Trap Trick is cool because if you have, for example, 4 counter traps and Trap Trick, then you can still use your counter traps and then afterwards use the Trap Trick. I really like it, and I'm playing 2 of these anyway. So I'm not playing these just for Trap Trick as 2s. I'm playing these at 2s because I want to play them at 2s. This might be up to preference, so Trapaholic might even be the better card, but I personally like Trap Trick a little bit more this format than 2 Ferret Flames. Ferret Flames is great because it's a non-targeting, non-affecting board wipe. It's really, really good. The only downside of Ferret Flames is that you cannot shotgun it. So, for example, if you go first and your opponent has like a normal summon that you would really, really want off the board, you can use the Ruma Karma Cannon, but you cannot instantly use Ferret Flames. That's the only downside, but Ferret Flames is crazy, and it's great that you can access this via Trap Trick as well. Then for the last normal trap, the already mentioned the Ruma Karma Cannon. The Ruma Karma Cannon is very, very good because it has synergy with the Zark. If we book it, if summoned with the Sword of Supreme King, it's always usable, it outs towers, it's non-targeting, so it's great against Yummy, against Vanquish Soul. It's a really, really good card. I might cut Ferret Flames in the future, but right now I'm playing 2 of each of them. And finally, for the last trap in the main deck, we are playing a Skill Drain. Skill Drain is very good because sometimes our opponent wants to out the Extra, and we can still sit on the Skill Drain because Kentrigino is on 4000 attack and the Zarks are on 4000 attack, so we always have big beat stakes that our opponent probably can't beat over. Skill Drain is also quite nice if you go second because you can just set your stuff, and if your opponent wants to interrupt you, you can flip the Skill Drain and then neck their whole board. So you can force an interruption with a Frenzy, for example, and then if they want to negate the Frenzy, you chain the Skill Drain so that the negation is negated and the out to your out is outed again. In the extra deck, we are playing 3 Rexstrom, 3 Kentrigina. I'm not playing Stealth Burger because I oftentimes overcommitted anyway. I always have my graveyard filled up, and I like to have the 3rd Kentrigina. I was only playing 2 before and 1 Stealth Burger because the Kentrigina is just so crazy in the grind game. You can use Kentrigina to make a Chaos Angel late game. You can just the copy traps from the graveyard effect is so nutty. So I wanted to play the 3 Kentrigina. I might go back to playing 2 and 1 Stealth Burger in the future again. For the Zark engine, I'm playing 1 Supreme King Zark. This is very nice because it has an on-summon effect to blow up your opponent's board, which you can resolve if you book this with the Ruma Karma Cannon. And in the scale, it prevents the activation of any Xyz, Synchro, or Fusion monsters your opponent controls, and it destroys a card or cards that are added from the main deck to your opponent's hand. You have to be careful about one thing though. If your opponent adds a Vanquished Soul name that can tag out, for example, like they add a Caesar, and you try to use the trigger effect of Zark and Scale to destroy the Caesar they just added, they can just chain the Caesar to special summon it and tag out, and then it's treated as a different copy, so it will not destroy the card they added. So that's one thing you gotta keep in mind. The other copy of Zark is just an Odd Eyes Archray Dragon. This name becomes Zark, and you can special summon it by putting a Zark back into the extra deck. It's good because the Zark returns in your end phase if summoned with Sword of the Supreme King, and sometimes your opponent will just refuse to activate spell cards. That's a great thing on its own, so that we force our opponent to not use any spells, because the Sword of the Supreme King is just so threatening. But if they gamble on us having to return this back to the extra deck, we can just summon an Archray Dragon and then have this in the extra deck again. And if this is back in the extra deck, you can use this for Prosperity, and you can just special summon this back from the extra deck with Sword of the Supreme King, because you are playing multiple of this. So it's always recommended to play one of each. For the targets, we are playing a Crystal Clearwing Synchro Dragon. This is a spell trap or spell trap effect negate. And if our opponent activates a monster effect, it can gain attack equal to that monster's attack, and then it's unaffected by the activated effects of monsters that our opponent controls. This is kind of hard for Dracotail to out, because, forget what I just said, it's unaffected by the activated effects of our opponent's monsters. So they struggle to out this because it's really big and they cannot affect it, and it's a spell trap negate. So this is great against Dracotail. Then we are playing a Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. This is decent against Vanquish Soul K9, or just Vanquish Soul in general, or just K9 in general, or just to negate a Nibiru on your opponent's turn. Because oftentimes you play into Nibiru with this deck. If you use Domain to summon a Kent, then Kent to summon a Rexturm, then Soul of the Supreme King to summon a Zark, and then you use the Soul of the Supreme King in the graveyard to summon 2 more monsters, you've played into Nibiru, and you gotta have a way to negate the Nibiru, or your opponent can just use the Nibiru to wipe your board. So this is great to have just a monster negate that you can use every single turn, and it can gain attack. It's a really, really good card, and sometimes if we have spell trap negates, we don't need the Crystal Clearwing. And finally, for our last target for the Zark engine, we are playing a Brave Ice Pendulum Dragon. This pretty much negates every single hand trap in the game. It says negate the effects of monsters with 0 attack. So our Frenzy cannot get Ash anymore. We cannot get Veiler. Sure, this doesn't matter much, but oftentimes you will get Veiler under Teresia. You cannot get Belled. This is just a crazy card. Also, if it battled an opponent's monster and it's not destroyed at the end of the damage step, you can just non-target banish that monster. And it's a 3000 buddy, so it's a very, very good card. And it's probably the reason why Soul of the Supreme King is a viable engine in this deck. Then, for the non-Dinomorphia or Zark monsters in the extra deck, we are playing an Evil Tsar Lagia. Lagia is nice, especially in the Dracotail matchup, because we can threaten the Lagia. We can just summon 2 buddies back with the alert, and then if our opponent doesn't want to do anything against the 2 buddies on the next turn, for example with an Archetype Bounce, we can then use these buddies at the start of main 1 to make a Lagia, and then Lagia is a spell trap negate or even summon negate. It's really, really good that we just have our opponent keep in the back of their minds, well, they could go into the Lagia once they saw it. And it's just very, very good once we go into this as well, because it's a spell trap negate that's accessible with the buddies that we summoned with the alert pack. So it's very, very good. The other monsters are an SP Little Knight and a Chaos Angel. I like to use both in the same turn. So you can use a Kentrigina and another level 4 Dinomorphia monster to go into the Chaos Angel to get a banish. And then you can use the Chaos Angel and another Dinomorphia monster to go into the SP. So you get 2 banishes, and then you still get the SP that can help you with tagging out. Chaos Angel, you could cut this and play a Dugaris instead, because it's easier to use a Dugaris with 2 of the buddies, get a revive, then maybe trigger a Teresia again, and then use Dugaris and the Teresia to make an SP. But Chaos Angel is still great, and it's another banish. You still lose out on the Kentrigina though, and Kentrigina is just insane in the grind game. So it might be up to preference as well, but I like Chaos Angel right now. And finally, for the last card in the extra deck, we are playing 1 copy of Typhon. This is absolutely mandatory. I know sometimes we will lock ourselves out of summoning Typhon with Card of Demise and Pot of Duality and everything, and we don't play that many normal summons, but still, it's just so good. Like, you can normal summon Teresia. Teresia will force a negate from the opponent. Maybe they Veiler it, maybe they do something else. And then you can use the Teresia, go into a Typhon, Typhon declare an attack, like threaten to swing over something or swing over something. And then in main 2, you can Typhon to get a bounce that's even non-targeting. It's really, really good. In the side deck, first going to go over which cards I got on the side and where you can, in general, use the cards. And then I'm going to list my siding patterns. I'm playing 3 Sphere Mode. Sphere Mode is just, it's a better kaiju, and we can summon it even if we used Pot of Duality or a Card of Demise. So it's very, very good. It also just gets rid of 3 of our opponent's monsters, but the only downside of this is that it's a normal summon monster with 0 attack. So our opponent can make Almirage with this if they are playing Yummy. Then we are playing 3 Droll. I don't think Draw is that bad of a card in this format. I think it's decent in the Sidedeck, and I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, but I think quite many people have copied the Worlds list, where Vanquish Soul K9 won Worlds, and that list really plays into Drawn and Lockbird. So Drawn and Lockbird is all of a sudden good against Vanquish Soul K9 now. So yeah, we are playing Drawn and Lockbird. Then Two Lord of the Heavenly Prison. I want to thank my friend who was playing Memento against me in testing, because this deck has a horrible Memento matchup, and a lot of the Heavenly Prison just activates in the hand to prevent your set cards from being destroyed by card effects. It's very, very good, because oftentimes you play against decks that can make like a Guardian Chimera in your end phase and then pop 2 of your cards and then use the K9 quick play to get another pop. Those decks can be really annoying, but Lord of the Heavenly Prison just says no to them. If you go second into a deck that can pop stuff during your turn, Lord of the Heavenly Prison is always great. Then 3 Soul Drain, because we deal with monster effects on the field with Rexter, and we deal with monster effects in the graveyard and banishment with Soul Drain. So our opponent can only really use monster effects in their hand if they want to use any monster effects. The only downside of Soul Drain is that it affects ourselves as well, so we can't float with our Dinomorphia monsters anymore. Then I'm playing a ton of one-offs. I'm playing 1 anti-spell because it's anti-spell, and we can protect our boards way better with this. It also has the upside that Droplet currently is being played by quite many people, and it says that spells have to be set and they cannot be activated until their player's next turn. So even if they set the Droplet, they can't use it in the next turn, but they have to wait 2 whole turns to activate a quick play. 1 Gozen. Gozen is great. There are some decks where Gozen is bad, like for example Yummy, but it's still really, really good, especially against Vanquish Soul, obviously. 1 Brute. This doesn't target and it's removal, and we can copy it with Kentragina, and we can even copy it with Kentragina and destroy the Kentragina if we wanted to then get a level 4 buddy on our field again. It's just a crazy card, and depending on the format, you really should play Brute. Currently, I really like Brute. There were some formats in the last year where I was just not playing Brute at all. Sometimes it's really horrible. This format is currently very good as a one-off in the side again. And finally, I'm playing a Sonic in the side to have a searchable spell trap negate that we can just set with Teresia. And now the siding patterns. First, the Dracotail siding patterns, because I feel like Dracotail is the worst matchup out of all the meta decks in the current format. Against Dracotail, there are, I feel like, multiple ways you can play the Dracotail matchup. Either you can try to just straight up negate everything that they throw at you, or you can just try to win the grind game. I feel like trying to win the grind is way better against Dracotail, but you can just try the other way as well. This is my trusty notes. Sorry, my little T-Rex. This was my mate at the regional as well. It was just so hilarious. So, enough yapping from me. Dracotail siding patterns. When I went first against Dracotail, I sided in Anti-Spell and Mind Drain, and I took out the Ferret Flames, because Ferret Flames, as I mentioned earlier, it's harder to activate, and because they don't have crazy many buddies on the field, Dracotail, it doesn't do that much against them anyway. So Ferret Flames out, as well as the Daruma Karma Cannon, because it's a fusion deck. Like, if you book their stuff, they will just flip it up the next turn. And yeah, these 4 out, Mind Drain in, Anti-Spell in. Why? Dracotail has crazy many monster effects in the graveyard that could really screw you over with the non-targeting spell trap pops, non-targeting monster pops, non-targeting monster negates, and all of the setting from the deck. And we just completely shut that off if we get a Soul Drain on the field. So Soul Drain is crazy against Dracotail. If we go second against Dracotail, we don't want to activate any spells, because they have the spell negate that could also draw them one. And the odds are high that we only open 1 spell anyway. So we are siding out every single spell, because otherwise they just get recursion with the spell negate, and they can put back their trap that's a bounce to set it again, or they can just effectively have the trap become an upstart goblin. And we don't like our opponent drawing cards. So we are siding all of these out, and we also again side out the Ferret Flames and the Daruma Karma Cannon. This time we signed in again the Drain, again the anti-spell, but we also side in Gosen because they have different attributes, the Dragontails, and it's nice to just lock them into one, because then they have to decide sometimes, do I want to sit on Earth monsters or do I not want to sit on Earth monsters? Then we also side in the Sonic, the Brute, because Brute can sometimes get rid of their bounce, because we know which zone they set their bounce in. So you can say to your opponent pretty much, sure, you get removal, but I know where your removal is, and I can just destroy your removal. And the Sonic is also great, because we know they got the trap to out us, but we can just search our own out to their out. So it's very, very nice. And Lord of the Heavenly Prison is cool, because if they got 5 mana and you are going first, it's already quite bad, because they can set up a pop turn 0 and get into the grind game. But if you go second, they will always end on this guy. And he's a pop, but you can prevent him with Lord of the Heavenly Prison pretty much. So Lord prevents you from just setting 5, but having one of your cards be destroyed in the end phase, or even more of your cards be destroyed during your turn. And it's one of the matchups where siding in Lord is very good. Lord is just good in the grind game as well, if you special summon him and set stuff from the deck. Now the siding pattern against Yummy. Yummy is a good matchup for this deck, I feel like, even though the Yummy monsters are quite small in attack, but you can still very much beat them. I always sided in a Brute and an anti-spell when I went first. There isn't much you can side against Yummy with the side deck if you go first, because these obviously mostly just work second. This is just if your opponent plays turn 0 and Yummy doesn't. Soul Drain doesn't affect Yummy at all. But anti-spell is good, because oftentimes they play quite many breakers. I played one time against Yummy and they were on Trust, Talons, Droplet, Raigekis, and Darkholds. So yeah, anti-spell is great against that. If you can stop all of that with one single card, that's kind of nice. I know that you can place the field spells even under anti-spell, but it doesn't matter much. We still win if we set up, and anti-spell is a great card. And Brute doesn't target. So even if they want to dodge the Brute, they can't, because then we just pop whichever monster they summon after the Brute, or when the Brute resolves. For the Brute and the anti-spell, I sided out the Ferrets, because their monsters are quite small and we can't really use the Ferret Flames that well. If we go second against Yummy, I always sided in the Sphere Mode, as well as the Droll and one Brute. And for these 7 cards, I sided out one Alert, because Alert needs setup, and it doesn't do much if you go second and you just open like 2 Alert and other non-engine. So Alert at 1 going second is completely fine, especially in the Yummy matchup. I also sided out Drain, because Drain doesn't do anything against Yummy if you go second. If you go first, you can still sit on the Drain and they can't use their own summon effects. They can't really use their own field effects, and they can't like chain anything on the field to dodge, unless the synchros. Like the synchros they can still do, but they can't do a snatchy chain to dodge some of your card effects. So Drain going first is good, Drain going second is bad. So again, going second, siding pattern for Yummy. I'm sorry that this is a bit chaotic. In Sphere Mode, Droll, Brute, out, 1 Alert, Skill Drain, Ferret Flames, as well as Judgment. Because Judgment, it's good against some decks if you go second. Against Yummy, there's an argument to keep it in as well, because they just bounce your stuff with the surprise, and then you can like set the Judgment again, and it's still usable. It's a decent card, but Judgment doesn't help you that much if you go second against Yummy. All of the other counter traps help you way more, because you can chain these to an Arclight, and you need the space to side in these cards. So Judgment goes out as well. If we play against Vanquish Soul K9, or if we play against Chris Strong K9, the siding is pretty much the same. If I go first, always side in Gosen. Gosen is great against Chris Strong, because you can waterlock them, and they can't really do much if you do that. And against Vanquish Soul, it's obviously good, because all of them have different attributes. The best they can do is probably stay on Earth, but it's still not great for them. So if we go first, we take in Gozen, Anti-Spell, as well as Brute, because Brute is non-targeting. That's for one, it's great against the Crystron Continuous Trap, because we can get rid of that. It's a pop on our Rex term otherwise, and we can non-target get rid of Vanquish Swords if our opponent wants to tag out. And out for these is Drain, because they can dodge Drain anyway, and if we go first, we don't need the Drain that much, because we can just set up the Rex turn. Drain, as I mentioned earlier, is crazy if you go second and you got 5 set cards and you can chain the Drain to out to one of your cards. And the Ferret Flames. So the 3 cards that go out is 2 Ferret Flames, 1 Drain, and in goes Anti-Spell, Gozen Match, and Brute if we go first against Vanquish Sword K9 or against Crystron K9. If we go second against either one of those decks, we put in the Droll. As I mentioned earlier, quite many people in Vanquish Sword K9 are playing the World's winning list, and that one is playing 3 of the K9 Continuous Spell. That's an ad. If you draw your opponent on the K9 Continuous Spell, it hurts. Sure, you activated a monster effect in the hand and everything. Yeah, that's fine. They can set up an Izuna and everything, but they can't do any more searches. And even if they put 1 rank 5 on the field, it doesn't do much against you because you got a crazy good matchup against them. Like, Izuna on board doesn't do anything if they don't have the quick play spell against you. Droll also hurts quite much if you draw them on the Mad Love add or field spell. Droll is very, very good. Also against Crystron, obviously. It's good because they have to search a ton. Then I also put in a Sphere Mode. Sphere Mode is good, but if you draw them, sometimes they don't end on 3 monsters, so you are stuck with a Sphere Mode in your hand. But Sphere Mode still is crazy. I Sphere Mode a Crystron K9 player, for example, and got rid of like Dawn Dragster in Infinity and I can't remember the third one, but 3 monsters, 3 threats on the board, outed with a single normal summon. And we don't need our normal summon in this deck. Diplos is a bad normal summon. Sometimes you need to normal summon the Diplos, but Terazia is pretty much your only good normal summon. And the odds of opening Terazia and Sphere Mode are quite low. And we also put in the Gozen. As I mentioned earlier, Gozen is great against Vanquish Soul and Gozen is great against Crystron. And to make space for these cards, we put out the Judgment and we again take out 1 alert, and because we got to make space for 7 cards, we take out the Soul of the Supreme King. Soul of the Supreme King against Vanquish Soul sometimes is usable, but oftentimes I have my opponents not even declare the field spell. Sometimes because they forget it or they don't need it. And Soul of the Supreme King isn't usable much in that matchup because they don't need any spells anymore. Going first, you can effectively say, okay, I have an IO on my side of the field because you can't activate any spells anymore. But going second, your opponent doesn't have to use any spells against you. So Soul of the Supreme King out, Judgment out, and 1 alert out. These were my siding patterns. As I mentioned earlier, I went 6 and 3. 6 and 3 was enough to get a top for some people, but my tiebreakers were bad. I lost in round 1 against Dracotail. As I mentioned earlier, it's not a great matchup, and I lost the die roll as well in that match. So there wasn't much I could do. I beat quite many decks with this. I beat a ton of different decks with this. I played against Yummy, against Malice, against Crystron K9, against Vanquish Soul K9. And this deck got a decent matchup against all of them. I hope you have as much fun with this deck as I did. I hope you might be able to get a top with this. And I'll try again this Saturday in the Stuttgart Regional that I will be attending. I had a great experience. I once sat next to Lumpy where I played against him at the Gamescom recently, and he still remembered me because I was playing Dinomorphia back then as well, obviously. And he was like, I remember you, but I'm not going to reveal what deck you are playing. And I told him, I trying to hide it. I'm the Rex Terminator. I got my T-Rex puppet. I got my Dino at the back of my jacket. And yeah, it was just like, holy cow, that's kind of cool. And he finished 6-3 as well. So Trap Decks is still living in 2025. And yeah, maybe give this deck a shot. It's cheap, except for this guy. Yeah, and it's a lot of fun. Iron Thunder got a reprint, so pick up Dinomorphia now. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you could maybe learn a few things from the siding patterns. If you have any suggestions, if you have any comments about my siding patterns, just write them down in the comments below and I'll try to answer them ASAP. If you have any suggestions for a new deck I should try out or for a deck that I should take to locals or take to regional, then write it down to the comments below. I'm attending the Lille YCS as well as the Bologna YCS. So if you can convince me to take a deck to either one of those YCSs, I will do that as well. So if you say, yeah, well, Alex, you should probably play Drytron again, and this is the reason why Drytron is great in this format. If you convince me, then I will be playing Drytron at one of those tournaments. Anywho, I yapped enough. I hope you have a nice day. I hope you stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.